In August 2023, the seas of Central America witnessed an unprecedented sight. More than 160 container ships sat motionless off the coast near the Panama Canal. On AIS tracking maps, the glowing dots stretched silently like a line of traffic lights gone dark. Experts called it the largest traffic jam at sea in human history. Normally, each transit through the canal takes 8 to 10 hours, but this time, that number ballooned to 500 hours, nearly 3 weeks. The longer wait meant soaring costs. Analysts estimated shipping expenses rose by 5% and delivery times stretched an additional 20%. Some ships were willing to pay $2.4 million just to skip the line. Each stranded vessel carried thousands of containers, furniture, fuel, or grain. And the United States, the country with the highest volume of ships passing through Panama, was hit the hardest. When the flow of goods stopped, inflation in America bounced back like a chain reaction. Meanwhile, Panama kept raising transit fees up to 8 times higher. And so nations dependent on this canal began asking themselves a question: was it time to choose a different route? But first, let's find out what's making the Panama Canal, the gateway between two oceans, gradually fall into such decline. Opened in 1914 and expanded in 2016, the canal can still only handle ships up to 15,000 TEUs. Meanwhile, the world now has mega containers carrying up to 24,000 TEUs, nearly as long as 4 football fields. It's a bitter irony the world's #1 economy, the United States, can't receive the largest ships on the planet. Most of them simply can't pass through Panama, the very gateway that once helped America dominate global trade. Today, the Panama Canal stands as a bottleneck of the 20th century in a 21st century logistics world. And this time, its weakening isn't caused by humans, but by nature itself. From 2019 to 2023, Central America suffered severe droughts with rainfall dropping by as much as 30%. The 2 lakes that feed the canal, Gatun and Aljajuela, have been steadily drying up due to El Niño and deforestation in the Chagres River Basin. Did you know that one ship's passage through the canal requires 53 million gallons of fresh water, the same amount New York City uses in a single day, now that supply is no longer sufficient? In 2023, Panama faced its driest year since 1950, forcing authorities to cut daily transits to just 24 ships, a 40% reduction from previous years. The United States is currently the country with the highest shipping volume through the Panama Canal, accounting for more than 70% of all cargo passing through. Allowing the entire supply chain, especially trade between the US and Asia, to depend on a single canal is a major strategic risk. However, finding an alternative route to Panama is far from easy. In the early 20th century, Nicaragua was once considered as a potential site for a canal connecting the two oceans. The project was abandoned after scientists warned that an eruption of the Masaya volcano could destroy the entire canal route within hours. More than a century later, in 2013, Chinese billionaire Wang Jing tried to revive the idea with a $50 billion plan to build the Nicaragua Canal. Though promoted as a Panama alternative, the project quickly collapsed due to financial crises, opposition from indigenous communities, and environmental concerns. When China withdrew, the U.S. began looking elsewhere for a politically stable, geographically closer, and more importantly, strategically aligned option: Mexico. Mexico quickly made a decisive move. "We don't need a water canal, we have a rail canal," a Mexican official declared in June 2022. And those words were far more than just a slogan. This is the Interoceanic corridor of Tehuantepec, a $7.5 billion project designed to become a dry canal connecting the Pacific Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico. The 188-mile railway runs from Salina Cruz to Coatzacoalcos, allowing cargo to move from ship to train and back to ship, cutting transport time compared to sailing all the way around the Panama Canal. Mexico officially broke ground on the project in April 2023 with the president and international investors in attendance, marking a major milestone in the country's effort to modernize its logistics infrastructure. The project is backed by $6 billion from the Mexican government and $2 billion in private investment, proving it's not just a commercial venture, but also a strategic political play. Beyond the railway, the corridor integrates 2 deep-water ports, 3 airports, gas pipelines, highways, and fiber optic networks, along with 10 industrial parks spanning sectors from energy and pharmaceuticals to automotive and petrochemicals. By the end of 2024, the project aims to complete its ports and core infrastructure ready to welcome its first containers. This will turn it into a true multimodal logistics hub, not just for transportation, but also for manufacturing, storage, and transcontinental distribution. Mexico's goal is clear: to ease the burden on Panama, create a second trans-American trade route, and position the nation as the logistics heart of the Western Hemisphere. As Mexico began building the Tehuantepec corridor, a silent battle also started. Yet few people realize that Panama has long been under China's sphere of influence. The Land Bridge Group now controls the Colon port, which handles more than 40% of the canal's transshipment traffic. Beyond that, most logistics maintenance and vessel data management contracts are also operated by Chinese companies. For Washington, this is a serious warning sign: global supply chains could be manipulated through a single waterway. Rather than confronting it directly, the United States chose a quieter response, quietly supporting Mexico in developing a pro-Western canal right along its southern border. Meanwhile, Mexico seized the golden opportunity. The trend of nearshoring moving production chains out of China is surging. In 2024 alone, industrial investment in Mexico surpassed $36 billion, up 41% from the previous year. Major corporations such as Tesla, BMW, and Intel have all announced new factories near the Tehuantepec route. Now take a closer look at the Tehuantepec corridor. From the outside, the Tehuantepec corridor seems like a modern railway, but when you dissect the project, you'll see details few people mention. For example, the average grade reaches 2.5%. That may not sound high, but with trains hauling thousands of tons of containers, they must use 2 locomotives in tandem, consuming a huge amount of fuel. Not to mention, the line has to cross 12 viaducts and 10 mountain tunnels, which pushes the real cost above $15 billion, far higher than the initial $7.5 billion figure announced by the government. Did you know that by 2025, the project will have completed only about 79% electrification? Many trains are still using 1980s diesel locomotives, smoke billowing and noise echoing through the valleys. But what's notable is that despite the technical limitations, the Tehuantepec corridor operates year-round, independent of storms or drought. That's something the Panama Canal cannot guarantee. Another interesting point is that thanks to this line, Mexico can integrate manufacturing and logistics right along the corridor. Industrial parks along the route can pack, sort, and load goods directly onto trains, shortening storage time and reducing costs for businesses. Placed side by side, Panama and Mexico represent two completely different philosophies of global logistics. As we mentioned earlier, the Panama Canal, just 51 miles long, is a vital artery of world trade, allowing ships to travel between oceans in less than 10 hours. However, when congestion hits, that journey can stretch to 500 hours. In contrast, Mexico's Interoceanic corridor stretches 188 miles across rugged terrain. Even when including transfer and loading times about 15 hours in total, this route offers something Panama increasingly cannot: reliability. While the canal depends on unpredictable rainfall to supply fresh water for its locks, Mexico's steel railway operates year-round, unaffected by droughts or rising sea levels. Operationally, the contrast is striking. Panama handles 8.5 million TEUs per year compared to Mexico's projected 1.4 million. But the Mexican corridor is still in its early stage, and its advantage doesn't lie in cargo volume. It lies in resilience. When one system grinds to a halt because nature shuts off the tap, the other keeps running, not powered by water, but by infrastructure. Simply put, Panama is a climate-vulnerable waterway, while Mexico is a land bridge built to withstand it. So, if it were up to you, which route would you choose? Share your thoughts below. You know, on an economic map, the Interoceanic corridor might look like just another railway. But for the people of Mexico, it's the line between hope and fear. The route cuts through the states of Oaxaca and Veracruz, two of the poorest regions in the country, where the average income is only half the national level. The government has promised that the project will create more than 550,000 jobs, boost GDP by 1.6%, and usher the region into a new era of industrialization. It sounds promising, but the reality is far more complicated. Along this railway, 11 indigenous communities have filed formal objections, fearing deforestation, water pollution, and the loss of ancestral lands. They call the project railway colonialism. Imagine this as freight trains carrying international goods rumble through just a few hundred yards away, stand villages that still don't have stable electricity. On one side is the whistle of the 21st century, on the other, a way of life still trapped in the 20th. Human rights organizations, including the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, have opened investigations. Yet, the government insists it's an inclusive development project. The question remains development for whom and at what cost. Mexico understands that a single corridor isn't enough to reshape regional trade. That's why the government is linking the Interoceanic corridor of Tehuantepec with a series of other large-scale railway projects to create what it calls the new backbone of the continent. The most prominent of these is the Tren Maya, a nearly $1 billion railway project featuring 42 trains and more than 4,000 direct jobs. The line is designed to promote sustainable tourism while reviving the rich cultural heritage of the ancient Maya across the Yucatan Peninsula. Trains glide quietly through the jungle, stopping at archaeological sites like Chichen Itza and Palenque, not only attracting travelers, but also shaping the vision of a green Mexico, where infrastructure, ecology, and culture coexist. At the same time, in the north, the government is advancing the Tren del Istmo Norte, a route connecting the Coatzacoalcos industrial hub directly to the state of Texas in the United States. Once completed, the three major routes, Tehuantepec, Maya, and Istmo Norte, will form a transcontinental network linking the Pacific, the Atlantic, and the U.S. into one unified logistics corridor. The long-term goal, looking toward 2050, is to make Mexico the logistics center of the entire Western Hemisphere, a place where goods can move between Asia, Latin America, and North America in just a few hours. When Mexico launched its dry canal, Panama knew it couldn't just stand by and watch the world take a detour, so the Central American nation began fighting back with an ambitious plan for renewal. At the center of it is the $2.5 billion water security program led by the Panama Canal Authority. The project aims to build a new reservoir in the Indio River Basin and to test a diluted saltwater recycling system to reduce dependence on fresh water from Gatun Lake. The goal is clear: to restore canal operations to 38 ship transits per day by 2026 and cut water consumption per passage by 50%. At the same time, Panama is upgrading the Colon port, the Atlantic Gateway, to accommodate larger container ships and establishing the Green Shipping Corridor, a joint initiative with Denmark and Japan to promote carbon-neutral shipping. It's clear that Panama has no intention of letting Tehuantepec steal the crown. The country is working to transform itself from a 20th century marvel into a 21st century green model. When you look at the global logistics map, it's clear that Central America and the Caribbean are emerging as a new maze of transport where nations once seen as mere passageways are becoming strategic crossroads in the flow of world trade. In the south, Puerto Antioquia in Colombia is a prime example, a strategic port in the Urabá region set to open in 2025. It will shorten the route from Bogotá by about 63% compared to Cartagena, saving hundreds of dollars per shipment. This blend of seaport infrastructure and inland logistics is positioning Colombia as a new transportation hub. Farther north, Puerto Castilla-Amapala in Honduras is being considered as a potential new transoceanic corridor. The Honduran government has approved a $207 million loan to conduct preliminary studies for the Amapala port and a rail line connecting the Gulf of Fonseca to the Caribbean Sea. If the project succeeds, Honduras could become a strategic link, offering a reliable alternative route for international shipping. In short, if the Panama Canal experiences disruptions or prolonged congestion, at least three potential alternatives are ready to share the load: Mexico's Tehuantepec corridor, Colombia's Puerto Antioquia, and Honduras's Puerto Castilla-Amapala. Imagine this: a container from China no longer has to wait for weeks off the coast of Panama. It can now be rerouted through Mexico-Colombia or Honduras, reducing the risk of gridlock. The global impact is clear: as logistics become multi-routed, the risk of worldwide bottlenecks decreases, but the competition among transit nations intensifies. Every port, every corridor now competes for a strategic place in the Western Hemisphere, where trade interests, geopolitics, and economic power intersect. And so, after more than a century, as the gateway of the world, Panama now faces a defining moment. As the waters recede, the land dries, and the world thirsts for transport new routes, like Mexico's Tehuantepec corridor, Colombia's Puerto Antioquia, and Honduras's Amapala are ushering in an era of multi-centered logistics. The world no longer depends on a single canal. It's entering a new race for the power to connect humanity. The question is, who will become the new Panama of the 21st century Mexico with its continental steel railway, or Panama with its dream of reviving the green waterways? If this story opened a new perspective for you, share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe so we can continue exploring the silent races shaping the future of our planet.